First off, I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. Today's webinar is going to be about understanding and learning to use both the panel wizard and the panel menus. The reason I'm covering this webinar today is because a lot of people are learning about the event wizard and other great features that the BrainAvatar software has, but when people get specially designed protocols as BrainMaster does and other people out there do, they kind of just run it as it is, which usually works perfectly fine so long as you meet that person's resolutions and their standards and all that, or are above their standards. But the only problem and the only thing that's nice about the BrainAvatar software is you don't have to just accept that as an answer. You can make it fit exactly what you need. That is the nice thing, and that's one of the things that I always preach about with the BrainAvatar software, is that it is a software that is built for you and around you. Before I get into the details of what's going to be kind of covered today, I want to go over all the different resources that you have, of course, for your software. The first one can be found in the BrainAvatar software itself. And we're going to open our software up, and we're going to hit this button right here called Product Manuals. Of course, this is going to open up to our screen right here, which has all the different forms of documentation that are available. And where you're going to find, of course, what's going to be available for you is right here. It's actually the one that's green, the one that's a different color right here, BrainAvatar Trainee Screens. So this is where the documentation is, and we'll let it open up. And we will go up through a lot of the different features that it's covered. And it's basically the first portion of the document. Throughout these first areas, this goes over some of the different things we're going to be covering. For example, renaming tabs. And then this goes through every single display type as well as its panel menu. So there it goes through the panel as well as its menu. And it's going to go through those. And the other portion that we're going to cover today should go through right down here where it goes through the panel wizard system itself, which is the designing portion of it. So that's one portion you have. Of course, the other place that you have for your any type of questions, answers, or anything like that is, of course, the BrainMaster website. You got many different places that you have information for the BrainMaster software. One is, of course, our YouTube training videos that can be found right here, where this webinar and all future webinars go, which is, of course, in this recent uploaded areas, and, of course, can be in the playlist right here, which is the BrainMaster webinar series. So if I cover something a little too quick, or there's something you still have a question on, you can always go back to the video once it's been uploaded. From our website also, any uploaded or updated documents that come out prior to the software, we try to update all documents inside the software itself, but if we happen to miss one or whatnot, it will actually be right here at BrainAvatar Software and Updates. And you'll find them right here under documentation. For example, the BrainAvatar User Manual is version 1.2, which has about 180 pages in it and a lot of good information, very, very helpful for you guys. Another great place for any type of information that, of course, you can get would be our online knowledge base, which is right here. And, of course, this has its own built-in search engine, so you can search different things. There are many numerous things that do go on here, including things like our BrainAvatar protocols, which is specially designed protocols that are outside of the standard norm. You can go and download them down here, and they are, of course, complimentary. But as with all protocols coming from the BrainMaster company, these protocol designs and all designs provided by BrainMaster Technologies, Inc. are for demonstration and illustration purposes only. It is the clinician's responsibility to ensure that any designs used provide the intended feedback. The final place you have for any type of questions, concerns, answers, anything that you need, of course, you can contact BrainMaster Technical Support. The best way to get a hold of us is through email, which is support, SUPPORT, @brainm.com, BRAINM.com, or you can also get a hold of us by phone. The phone number over here is area code 440-232 6000. If you dial option 3, you will get the main technical support line, which dials all of us. If you dial option 207, that'll get a hold of you to Ashley Johnson. And if you dial 211, that'll get a hold of me, which is, of course, Robert Militia. So those are some different tools, of course, you guys have at your disposal. Should you have any questions or need any assistance with anything that I might be covering or anything that I might not be covering. But now, I guess, let's get into it, and let's go into the software. Now, you're going to notice that I start off, of course, with my trainee/study folder, which I call Panel Wizard Webinar. And in this protocol, or in this study folder, I am using the settings protocol, which alert, which is beta theta training, beta up, theta down, and of course a high inhibit of high beta. This is one of the standard protocols that we release in our BrainAvatar software. And as you can see, it has been custom built and custom designed for a resolution of 1920 by 1080. And it fits perfect for my screen, of course, because I designed it on my screen. So it's going to fit perfect, and it's going to look really gorgeous on here because that's what it was designed for. Now, for your screen, on the other hand, it might not fit as well. And to show exactly kind of what I mean, and you guys have probably seen it if you have had that before, so I'm going to change my screen resolution real quick. I am going to change it to, let's just do 1600 by 900. Looks a lot different. So now we're at a 1600 by 900 resolution screen. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my BrainAvatar software, and we're going to notice that things don't quite fit as well as they did before. That's because, well, now we're at a different resolution. So now what we got to do is, if you have a resolution like this and you want it to look exactly kind of how I had it before, well, now we got to utilize what we call our Panel Wizard system. The Panel Wizard was built in because a lot of people didn't like how things were kind of laid out in the software. The way the software used to work in the 3.0 and Discovery series, and even in the early BrainAvatar software, is it would stack all panels on top of each other. So it would go raw EEG, then it would go training EEG, then it would go thermometers, and then it would go event graph, and it would just stack them on top of each other, which allowed you to basically have a whole big giant screen that you would just scroll down. Well, in the BrainAvatar software, we added a couple new features. One of those being that we had multiple tabs, so that you can have your own individual what you wanted to look to on a different tab. And we also then gave the ability further to say, well, why don't you make the information that you're looking at work best for you? And that's where Panel Wizard comes in. You've probably heard me, if you guys have talked to me or called me, you know, on the phone over here for technical support, you probably heard me mention that a good couple times. And I'm going to go over that now and how you get into it. How you get into the Panel Wizard system is simply by finding the tab that you want to work on and right-click on it. That is going to bring you up this menu right here. As you can see in this menu, there are a bunch of different options. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to tell you what tab you're on. As you can see, our tab we have down here, we named Training. And right here, we're on Training. And then it's going to tell you even further that it's on tab 1. Right here is where we are listing all the different panels that are displayed on this menu. Currently, there are 6 total panels displayed on it. And it's also giving you some XY coordinates. Now, these XY coordinates and with height information. The XY is basically the position on the screen of where it is. The information, the way it lays out, is off of pixels. So basically, for our thermometer contour panel, it is located at 1298 pixels and 125 Y. So X is, of course, going to be vertical. Y is going to be horizontal. So if I go and link that out, I'm going to see this is where my thermometer contour panel is. Also in this, you're going to notice that it's going to have a width and a height. WH, width is, of course, how wide it is, vertical, horizontal, height, height. And you're also going to notice one other thing, that you're going to notice that some width heights are grayed out. That's because currently in this version of software right now, in this revision of everything, those panels cannot be adjusted. They are their size, and even if you do things special, as I'm going to show you here in a little bit, it's not going to actually change the height at all. There are also other options that you have in this screen. One of them is the ability to delete, and another one is to get into that panels menu. I'm not going to cover the panel menu as much right now. I'm going to go more in designing right now, and I'm going to more go in making this right here, this screen right here, fit my 1600 by 900 resolution. Now, as you know, one way that we can do this is, of course, you can go into the XY with height, and you can type in the information and change it. For example, I'm going to go to my text display, which, just so you know, my text display is right here, and I know it's right there because I can see that it begins at X of 0 and a Y of 0. So that's right up here in the top corner. I'm going to notice that the width of it is 1896, and its height is 125. So basically, the width of it, we can tell, does not fit my screen at all, just because of how wide it is. This right here shows every panel itself in a design so that it's easy to use. By doing this, I am able to click in these different boxes for each panel, and I'm able to move and design the screen to fit my needs without having to know exactly what the locations are. Now, I personally use the locations to make more finer adjustments, but I'll use it for the most part in this design and this nature. So what this is going to allow me to do is click right in this box right here, and as I'm holding it down, move to the left. And as you can see, you're going to notice not only is it changing in the width height box right here as I'm doing this, but the actual box itself is shrinking in size. So that when I set it right about here and hit this, we can now see the outline of the box right here, and we can see the size of it. So now what I can do is I can utilize this the entire way around to change my screen around. And that's what we're going to do. So now one of the things we're going to notice is that not only before it was like a perfect fit, it fit in this perfect square, we're going to make this fit as a perfect square again. Because right now I got to drag down and go through everything. So the way I'm going to do that first is I'm going to go to my thermometer contours. And as you can see, these take up a big chunk of area right here. Well, now let's find out why they're taking up a big chunk. Now I'm going to go into the panel menu options. So when I go here, this is the example of the thermometer contours panel menu. Each display, well, almost each display, about 90% of the displays have their own specialized menu. And you got to ask yourself, well, what's the reason for this? The reason for this is this allows you to customize even further. This allows you to display information maybe not being trained. It allows you to display information that is being trained. It allows you to display event information. It allows you to customize your screen to basically have additional information that you may or may not want to see. For example, in the alert protocol that we're using, of course, theta, beta, and high beta are the only bands being trained. But what if you made a specialized band that covers, a much larger range, and you wanted to see how that was reacting to the training? Well, you could turn that on and display it here. You don't have to rely on it being trained to basically be turned on that. Or what if you wanted thermometers to display event information? Well, this is where you take care of that right there. Or the final option is, what if I wanted to use my large thermometers, which are these nice, beautiful looking thermometers right here. For a really high resolution, look great. For smaller resolutions, on the other hand, might not be the best unless that's kind of the only information you really want displayed on the screen. So because we're trying to actually take our original alert design and really compact it and kind of compress it into the area, we are going to now shrink them and make them the smaller thermometers. And I'm going to do that right here. Clicking Options, and hitting OK. Well, look at that. That gives us a lot more room versus the other ones on that. So what this now will allow us to do is to shrink this down a little bit and give us that room all over the place. And then it allows us to adjust this right here. And then I can move this panel in right here. And then I can hit Show Outlines, and there it is. So now I've adjusted that in. So now we can see all of our thermometers. Now, of course, if I wanted to show more information, I can do so. And I'm going to play around with that here in a little bit. We're going to go and play with all the different panels and display different information and kind of make this even more customizable for us. But right now, let's start shrinking some more things in. So I'm going to go with my CSA display right down here. Well, what I'm going to notice is that the CSA is about 345 in height, 1298 in width. So if I hit my show outlines and I bring this up and just not shrink its size, let's see how it fits. Well, it looks like it's still being cut off a little bit, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to see, this is where I use my X and Y right here to kind of more fine tune it. As you can see, I was able to basically take it from -1 to 0 right there. Make it a little bit better fitting on that. We're still getting cut off a little bit at the bottom. So at this point in time, this is where you kind of make a decision. Is the CSA very important for you, or could it possibly go on another tab? And that's what a lot of people will do when they have lower resolutions on things like that. And that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to go to this option right here, and we're going to hit delete. And as you can see, now that display is no longer there, and we still have our wide event trends and our graph to worry about. So let's make that fit. This display that's actually right down here is actually a brand new display. We just added in the last couple of revisions and all that, the ability to basically show the overall percent reward in our basic amplitude trainings. We had a lot of people requested for that, and actually coming up we are actually going to get a nice little feature called rewards per minute that's also going to be added on there. So now I've basically made this a little bit larger. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this portion right here to fine-tune it by typing in 75 and shrinking it up and basically just squinching it up a little bit more. I'm going to bring this display and we're going to hit that. Okay, so it looks like we'd have to basically shrink that up a little bit if we wanted both those displays in there. And that's where, once again, I'm going to use this and do my fine-tuning. And there we go. And I had it fit in there. And now, like as you can see, like I said, this is kind of making it very tight right now. But it gives you the ability to kind of make it fit for your resolution that you're going to have. And so now I've basically taken this screen and I fit it for a resolution of 1600 by 900 when it was originally developed on 1920 by 1080. At this point in time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my second tab, and I'm going to rename this tab by double-clicking on the tab, much like anybody who's worked with Excel. If you want to rename tab 1 or tab 2 or tab 3, if you double-click on it, you can put a name in there. So I'm going to rename this CSA. And I am going to go to Display, and I am going to go to my CSA filter, and now I basically put that display right on this screen right here. So we've been able to customize the screen to fit our needs in our software right here. Now, that's fine if you want to take a pre-built one and just run with whatever's pre-built on it. What if you want to do other things to it? What if there are things you want to monitor? What if there are other displays you want to look at? What if you wanted to do it through events versus regular amplitude training? Everything can be done, but first, before I do that, I'm going to change my resolution back. To my resolution. And we're going to launch our software again. All right, that's a little bit better. Okay, so now that I'm back on my resolution right here, what I want to kind of cover more now is we got the basic premise behind Panel Wizard. Now I want to go through the panel menus. This is a really cool feature and is really not used that often. This allows you to basically look at more information on every type of display that's out there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to tab 3. I'm going to go to display, and for example, I'm going to go to my display right here called acquired waveforms. What acquired waveform or what the panel menu allows you to do, and there's, like I said, one for about 90% of every single display, is to customize more of exactly what you're looking at. For example, in the acquired waveforms, you can actually choose to have different acquired waveforms being displayed or not being displayed. They're still being acquired, but you actually don't have to view them all. It also allows you to go even deeper and choose if you want acquired waveforms to be basically looking at raw EEG, filtered waveforms. Then it goes even further as far as the display goes. And I'm going to just choose theta, beta, and high beta because that's what we're training on. And then you have other further options. For example, you can show a zero line, which is basically, of course, the zero line when it comes to looking at EEG. Then you have more information that can be displayed over here. Peak to peak, RMS data, DC offsets if you have your discovery, and impedances if you have an Atlantis, or if you have the brand new discovery with the impedance lid on it. You can turn on all these features, and as you can see, for every single waveband now I have a zero line. I'm also looking at my peak to peak and RMS microvoltage. And right here on my raw EEG, I'm looking at the millivolts of the DC offsets, and I'm looking at my K-ohm reading or impedance readings on here. So I've been able to customize this panel basically to meet my needs on that. Let's say, for example, like I said, if I go to settings, I go to bands, and I wanted to make a new band that we'll just call Super Beta or True Beta. And I wanted to make this 12 to 30. As you can see, the name has changed to it, and now I can basically view True Beta. And add my 8.2 as my acquisition. So now I'm going to be looking at raw EEG, theta, beta, high beta, and as I named it, True Beta, all with that information right there. Let's get rid of acquired waveforms. Let's look at training waveforms. Now, you got to ask yourself, well, what's the difference between acquired and training? That's actually a very simple question. We're going to open up our software, and we are going to go right here. So acquired is, of course, whatever's being acquired. So C3, any type of sites that you're actually acquiring. Training is going to be whatever you have montaged right here. So that's the biggest difference. Occasionally in versions like, for example, Alert, they're going to be the exact same. In a lot of Z-scores, they're going to be the same, but the montage is going to be remontage data. So where acquisition would be C3, P3, C4, or P4, the montage would allow you to remontage and have it as what you're used to probably seeing, C3, C4, P3, P4. So that's the biggest difference. Also, if you're doing any type of amplitude training, this is where it's done. So, as you can see, as my default goes, it's doing delta, theta, alpha, low beta, beta, and high beta. But as I right-click on here, I'm going to be able to play with my tab defaults. And of course, I can look at C3. I can look at my raw EEG, which is a nice feature of that. And then you can kind of break it down from there. So once again, if I basically stick with high beta, theta, and beta, I can choose that. Once again, I can look at peak to peak. I can look at RMS. I can look at the DC on the actual filter right there. And then when I hit OK, we're going to see all of our information on it. I'm going to get more into a couple of the other features because they're a little bit more important than some of the things that we're covering right now. They're more used. Tech stats. Tech stats is actually a very, very, very great panel. A lot of people use them for a lot of different things. Tech stats are just that. It's going to give you the tech stat information for all filtered wavebands. It's also going to get you all tech stats for any events that are active. So it is a very powerful tool, but as a big giant box like this is not usually utilized. As you can see, if I go to my training tab right here, I have them customized a little bit further, where this one right here is showing my event information. This one right here is showing my amplitude information. And that, once again, is very easily done in the panel menu itself. So if I right-click on the tab, it's going to give you this menu right here. In the display, we've given a lot of customization that can really occur in it. For example, you can choose what band you're looking at, and you can also choose what event you're looking at. Now, one of the important things I'm going to do right here is I'm going to show you one of the features that's in there, and I've had a lot of people ask me about this. Why is it done like that? You know, why are sometimes they're checked off and sometimes they aren't? Well, I try to check off on most panels that we're working with. You'll see prior that these are all checked off, like I'm going to do now. And you got to ask yourself, why would you do that? What's the point of checking off something that has no information in it? No event. There is nothing happening in Event 7 right here. Why do you check it off? Well, in the future, what if I want something in Event 7? If this is checked on, the moment I put an event into Event 7, the display is going to appear here because it doesn't know it doesn't want to be on. So it is going to automatically put it in there, and if you've spent a very long time designing a panel and now all of a sudden all your different information is being added in there, you might get a little upset. So if you're adding new designs and all that, I recommend checking off anything that's unused when it comes to event information. That way you don't have to worry about it later in the later when you're maybe adding further to your protocol that you're doing right there. Then over here there are more options that can occur. For example, one of the things is a large font. The large font actually takes precedence only over the event information. And as you can see, when I have it unchecked, it's its regular size. And when I check it, it's going to be its big size. Another option is to remove labels that are additionally on there. So if I check no labels, you're just basically seeing bare information as far as the numbers go, and you're also removing out the labels for the grand, damped, and percent energy on here. A little bit more confusing to do it that way, but you do have the capabilities, and there have been some people who have requested that information, and that's why it's in there. Another option right here is you can actually look at the information that's coming in as peak-to-peak or RMS. Now you got to ask yourself, why is this option in here? Well, this is actually a great feature right here. This allows you to basically have two different bits of information looking at it in a different way. Meaning I can have my text waveforms coming in actually being, of course, gathered as a peak-to-peak or, actually being trained as a peak-to-peak information, but I can look at the information in RMS. When is that going to have its use? Well, that's going to vary from person to person, or even if it has any use to you. But it does have the ability to do that. A new feature that was built into the latest version of software is this feature right here called demographics. Now, what demographics is going to do is this right here. It adds this extra feature right here that gives you your patient name in the panel or text stats. It gives you their birth date. It gives you the date that everything is occurring and the session type. So this is kind of a really cool feature right here that kind of gives you just a little labeling option that you can have on it. Finally, we have this right here, training channels. What this allows you to do is actually not view any of the training channels. Now you can do that two ways. One, you can check them off over here, or you can check it off right here. That way, if you ever want them to come back, they can come back very easy without having to check them on. So if I hit OK right here, there we go. My information is all gone as far as my training channels. There are a couple other features in here right here. You got the ability to show and hide events. For example, if you only want to look at event A, you can choose to hide everything else. You can choose to only show event B on different graphs, and you can just hide them in general. Or you can show them in general. So it gives you a little nice kind of, extra kind of step that you can do on things like that. Another thing you got right here is actually some different things of filter precision and data precision. Basically, what this allows you to do is even more fine-tuning basically what you're looking at. For example, if I set my data precision to 1, 0.0. If I set it to 2, 0.00. 5. As you can see, it's getting basically more and more finer. Or 0. So what this allows you to do is make it more precise or less precise depending on what you want. You also have even one further step to basically make your filter precision and change that as far as how it's displayed. So basically what I'm saying right here is when it comes down to it, you have a lot of control over what you're looking at, how you're looking at it, and you can even change it from panel to panel, which gives you really good flexibility. So I'm going to bring out one more display, and then we're going to start playing around with some different things that go along into it. I'm going to bring out my thermometer contours again, and we're going to revisit this menu right here. As I said, there's the ability to choose to select off what band you want to look at. You have the ability to select what events you want to, and once again I'm going to check all these off. Except for my event 7. I'm going to leave that on for right now because I want to show you why it's good, in these circumstances to do that. You have your options of either large or regular, and then this is where you choose what type of data you actually want to display. Filters is of course going to be your filtered data. Events is going to be your event data. And that's the information on there. So why you would want to check off events on a display. I'm going to go hit Control E, and I'm going to open up my event wizard. I'm going to go to event 7. I'm going to go to enable that, and I'm going to say use equation. Let's try and think of an equation that I can use real quick. A 1,6. Okay, so for those of you who have been in my event wizard training or know what I'm putting in there right there, I am now looking at the amplitude of my first channel and my 6th band, which for anybody out there who knows that, I'm looking at high beta for that band. Is greater than, or I'm going to make it match up with my other training, is less than, use equation TRNT 1,6. So now what I'm doing right here in this event is I'm looking at my training amplitude. So high beta amplitude is less than high beta threshold. We're going to do nothing on it. I'm just going to put in a name, high beta, and I'm going to hit use settings and close. Okay. Now you're going to notice a difference between my thermometer contours display and my text stat display. You're going to notice that right after percent reward, nothing has been added. But in my thermometer contours, you're going to notice that I have a thermometer here named high beta that's at the end. And the reason is because in my text stats, I clicked off all my additional events besides the first 6. In my thermometer contours, I did not. I left high beta there. So because I left event 7 open and checked, it's going to display it, whether I wanted it to or not. So that's the biggest reason that you want to do something like that. Now, let's go into a little bit more further designing off of some of the information that I have right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a customized screen about all Event Wizard information, and I'm going to do it by using some of the different graphs. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to customize this back down. Well, actually, we're going to just leave this information right here. I'm going to right-click. I'm going to uncheck Auto Layout. I'm going to hit Apply, and I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to open it up again. And now what this is going to allow me to do is now customize and design the screen. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of make my graph. I'm going to make my text stats change. I'm gonna kind of customize them so we can make this a little bit more fun and a little bit easier to use. I can do that by first going into my menu again right here. I'm going to turn off the training channels. I'm going to turn off events. And there we go. I want to only stick with my demographics that I'm looking at right now. I'm going to show my outlines. I'm going to move this up a little bit. And now I'm going to fine tune it. There we go. So now I've fine-tuned it so that basically this tab is going to display my patient information right off the bat. Fine-tune it a little bit more. All right. Now I'm going to bring in another text stat. Because on this text stat, I'm going to change the information that's being displayed. So I'm going to go to that menu, and I'm going to take off my tab defaults. And I'm going to uncheck everything except for my first three events, theta, beta, and high beta. I'm going to uncheck training channels. I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm going to show my outlines. Move that right over here. And let's fine tune it a little bit more. We're just going to go to 600 that way. Let's go to 650. There we go. Okay. So now at this point in time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a very important thing when it comes to these, and that is the actual graphs for my event information, which are these ones right here called wide event trends. I'm going to go and I'm going to move it down right here. Okay, now let's go into their menu, because as you can see, basically each event is stacked on top of one another. What I like to do, and what a lot of people like to do, is have one graph that shows all three of those bits of information. That is actually not possible in the software as it is. You're asking me, well, why am I telling you about it, or why am I trying to show you something like that if you can't do it? Because you can do it in a different way. The panels for the wide event trends is actually what we call a see-through graph, meaning that there's no background to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to customize this to uncheck everything except for theta, and I'm also going to take off my auto range. So now I have one single graph for one single band. Well, that's not really useful if I want to look at all three of these. That's why what we're going to do is we're going to bring in another one. This time we know basically exactly where we want to put it because we already have one put there. So I'm going to type this in at 125, 1095, and 309. And we're actually going to play with the height on this one. I'm going to hit apply. Well, now all of a sudden we're going to notice it kind of looks like the one before with a couple more lines in it. Once again, we're going to go to my next panel menu. And now we're going to customize this menu to remove everything but the second portion, which is beta. And I'm going to keep my auto range off. Well, now all of a sudden you don't notice that there's two there. It's just one graph as it looks like to you. And the final one I'm going to add in, 25, 1095, 309, apply, menu, use tab defaults, there we go. So now what I've done is I've basically fooled the system in thinking that there's, or fooled ourselves into thinking there's only one graph there with 3 bits of information, but it's actually 3 graphs on top of each other. And we'll be able to see how this looks here in a little bit. The final thing that I'm going to do right here is I'm going to mess with my thermometer contours. I'm going to hit the menu. I'm going to check off things. Move that over there. Okay, so now as we know, with that, we have a site of 455. So what I usually like to do, and that's just because of how my mind works, is I like to make this fit exactly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 125 plus 455 equals 330. And there we go. So now basically what I've done is I've customized this to the event information. I have more information, so if I really wanted to, I can go and add more information. Like I can go right here and I can go to my texts. Bring this down. Maybe make this like that. 0, 60. 100 is usually better for a single event. You can probably also get away with 80 as far as a height to make that really fit in good. But there's the percent reward. Then I can do another wide event trend. I can place this at 560. And then one more thermometer contour. And so now basically what I'd be looking at on this one is, of course, up here all my information of theta, beta, high beta, and down here my percent reward. And I was just able to do that, using both the panel design of moving it around, and of course, basically after a little bit knowing kind of what graphs and what areas I'm working with, and using the XY coordinates and all that. And then of course when I hit go, then you have your information coming in. And that is, in a nutshell, how you guys can customize the BrainAvatar software to work for you. Now, let's just say you don't like something in its size and all that while you're running. We actually have built in the ability to be able to move these things on the fly while it's running. So now I've actually customized it while it's running and basically said, you know what, maybe I don't like how that looks exactly. Let's make it look a little bit better. Now, the most important thing, and this is something that I can't stress enough to you guys, that after you've done all this nice hard work in making something that basically is going to work for you, and you put your blood, sweat, and tears into making this design and making it perfect for you and your resolution, after you have done all this nice hard work, save your results. All right? So I'm going to stop the software. I'm going to close it. I'm going to open my software again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, Export Settings, and I'm going to name this alert panel wizard 8-8-13-RM for Robert Militia. Of course, the nomenclature that you guys use for whatever your protocols are is going to be whatever works best for you. And I recommend sticking with whatever works best for you on that one. So I'm going to hit save. And then, of course, whenever I would build a new protocol, or if I double-click to my thing, I would now use the settings as they're set up right here. And that is the panel wizard right there, pretty much for those. Does anybody now, after I've given you guys a whole bunch of information, have any questions on anything? If you want to edit the changes, you have to open that file you saved, then rename it. Yeah, okay, so yeah, no, I understand what you're asking right there, Sam. Yes, if, for example, I go back to my software and I say, you know what, I really don't like what I did right there, I want to make a couple changes to it. The way the BrainAvatar software works and the way the BrainMaster software has always worked is basically got to look at it like you always have two folders. All right, you have the settings folder, which is basically this folder where all your pre-built protocols are. And then you have your study folder. Your study folder is what you load settings into. So any changes you do to your study or your client are only going to be in that folder ever until you say, I want that to be a standard setting, or I want to make those changes to that standard setting, and this is what I want to happen going forward. So you would have to basically overwrite or save over it or make it a completely new one. I do know a lot of people out there. I know people like Penny Jean who have a lot of basically boutiqued protocols that they'll release all the time. And she'll have like 14, 15 of just Z-score protocols. And as opposed to having one protocol that she makes changes to and then adjusts, she calls the one that she wants to use for that patient. And, you know, so that's her a way of doing it. But yes, if you want to save changes to that particular setting file, you're always going to have to export the settings in order for it to be loaded into a new folder going forward. Other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day and take care and bye.